In New York, at the heart of global diplomacy, a pivotal decision was about to unfold. The United Nations Security Council convened on September 26, 2025, to decide whether to delay or enforce the reimposition of sanctions on Iran. The stakes could not have been higher. For months, European powers had pushed for a negotiated compromise. For Iran, the decision would determine whether a fragile window for diplomacy remained open or whether the country would once again face economic isolation. Inside the chamber, the air was tense. Delegates exchanged brief glances, their faces betraying the gravity of what was at stake. After hours of debate behind closed doors, the moment of truth arrived. One by one, the 15 council members cast their votes. The result was decisive. The proposal to postpone sanctions was rejected. For Tehran, it was a diplomatic defeat. For the council, a clear message that time for compromise had run out. The vote came just days before a European-imposed deadline for Iran to accept new terms for limiting its nuclear program. These terms demanded that Tehran roll back its uranium enrichment and allow greater access for international inspectors. By refusing to delay the sanctions, the Security Council signaled that patience had worn thin and that the world was prepared to act. To understand the weight of this decision, one must look back to the recent history of Iran's nuclear program. A decade earlier, in 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, widely known as the Iran nuclear deal, promised Tehran relief from crushing global sanctions in exchange for significant limits on its nuclear activities. For a time, that deal held. Inspectors verified that Iran was scaling back its program and its economy began to recover. But in 2018, the agreement began to unravel when the United States, under then-President Donald Trump, withdrew, citing concerns over Iran's regional policies and missile development. In the years since, efforts to revive the deal have faltered, with both sides accusing each other of bad faith. Today's vote is the latest chapter in that long and often bitter saga. By refusing to postpone the sanctions, the Council effectively closed the door on yet another round of talks, at least for now. The decision also exposed deep divisions among global powers. While the United States and its European allies backed the move as necessary for security, Russia and China opposed it, warning that it could further destabilize the Middle East. Reactions were swift. Iran's representatives at the UN denounced the vote as unjust and politically motivated. European diplomats expressed regret, but argued that Tehran had left them no choice by failing to meet the deadline. In Washington, officials called the outcome a decisive stand by the international community. Meanwhile, Moscow and Beijing criticized the decision, warning that sanctions could harden Iran's resolve and make future negotiations even more difficult. Beyond the headlines, the sanctions have profound human consequences. For ordinary Iranians, renewed restrictions mean rising prices for food and medicine, disrupted trade, and an economy struggling to stay afloat. Street markets in Tehran already show the strain. Imported goods are scarce, and many families say they are bracing for harder days ahead. Human rights advocates warn that the sanctions risk further isolating the Iranian people, even as they aim to pressure the government. Analysts are divided on what happens next. Some believe the sanctions could eventually force Tehran back to the negotiating table. Others warn that economic pressure may only fuel resentment and empower hardliners within the Iranian leadership. Much will depend on how Iran's leaders choose to respond and whether with confrontation or renewed engagement. The decision also reverberates far beyond the region. For Europe and the United States, it represents an attempt to reassert the authority of international law at a time when global institutions face mounting challenges. For countries across the Middle East, it raises new questions about stability, security, and the future of nuclear non-proliferation. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, as delegates filed out of the chamber, the gravity of the moment was unmistakable. The vote underscored the enduring challenge of curbing nuclear ambitions while balancing the demands of diplomacy and security. For Iran's negotiators, it was a setback. For the world, a reminder that the delicate dance between pressure and dialogue continues. The cameras captured the solemn faces of diplomats leaving the building, the iconic UN flag fluttering against the evening sky. Outside, reporters pressed officials for reactions, but few offered more than brief statements. The real consequences of the vote, many acknowledged, will be seen in the weeks and months to come. This decision also highlights a fundamental tension in international politics, the balance between collective security and national sovereignty. While sanctions are intended to deter the development of nuclear weapons, they can also deepen mistrust and provoke defiance. Finding the line between firmness and engagement has long been the challenge for global leaders, and today's vote shows that the question remains unresolved. As the sun set over the East River, the world was left watching Tehran. Would Iran seek compromise, or would it escalate in defiance? For millions of ordinary Iranians, the answer will shape their daily lives, from the price of bread to access to life-saving medicine. For diplomats in New York and capitals around the world, it will determine the course of one of the most enduring security challenges of our time. The reimposition of sanctions marks not just a political milestone, but also a test of international unity. It reflects the limits of negotiation, the persistence of mistrust, and the fragility of agreements built on compromise. Whether this approach leads to renewed talks or deeper confrontation will depend on the choices made in Tehran and the resolve of the international community to remain united. For now, the Security Council's message is clear: time for delay has passed. But the broader question remains: can sanctions alone change a nation's course, or will diplomacy ultimately prove to be the only sustainable path? The answer will shape not only Iran's future, but also the credibility of the global system designed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. As the world awaits Tehran's next move, one truth endures: the path to peace is seldom straight, often fraught with setbacks, and always defined by the difficult balance between pressure and dialogue. The vote in New York is the latest step in that long and uncertain journey.